Okay, welcome everyone to class 2, where we're going to be building a dashboard that fits the exact way that you interpret and ingest information, completely customized to the way that you think. And this will enable you to better make decisions for your company and your website and really be able to understand all of the data that is being presented to you and figure out what to do with that data in order to improve your company. Just like with class 1, there is a prerequisite video that comes with this class, so make sure you watch that first. It's pretty light, it's pretty easy, and not a big deal to get through, but it is required before you start building in this class, so make sure that you're covered there. All right, so by the end of the day, we'll have a dashboard that really fits the way that you understand and interpret information. The thing with Google Analytics and a lot of dashboards is they're pretty off the shelf and they're generalized for how experts in the field or just the general population understand information. And that's not really always that helpful because we all think differently and we all make decisions differently. So it's really important that you can have a dashboard that is actually actionable and you can actually use to better your company. So what we did in the prerequisites is we installed Google Analytics, which is going to record the traffic, and we signed up for Supabase. Again, if you have not done this yet, go watch the previous video or click this link in the deck to go to that guide and do it. But now we're actually going to build the dashboard. Uh, if you are watching this video and Google Analytics is either just installed or you don't have a lot of traffic or information yet, you can build all of this with dummy data, which is what I'm going to do, just so you can see the consistency of the build. And again, I installed this Scuba Zen tag about an hour ago, so there's not going to be that much data for me either. Totally okay to use this sample data. All the plumbing and everything that works is exactly the same. The only thing is once you get the Google Analytics data, you'll just want to swap out your real data for this dummy data. Really easy to do. Just tell Claude what you're doing. It'll figure it out. Okay, so we have two data sources and they do different jobs. So Google Analytics is the recorder. So all it does is it writes down information that it's seeing happening on your website, and then it's putting it into Supabase, which is your database. Uh, this is just the starting point of where we are for this class. But what's really great about this is that as you have more business data and other data sources, and you want to track other things like product performance or marketing performance, social media performance, any data source that you want can still work in this model. You'll just be adding them in your own business data as a different data source, but it all gets centralized here in the Supabase database. And this Supabase database is what feeds your dashboard. And so these two steps are what we're really building today. And it's really expandable to your entire business. So you'll be able to see a lot of different views and have a lot of different information. I'm just setting up with you guys this initial flow so you can get the baseline in. And then every data source you have, you follow this same exact process. So the way Claude actually operates Supabase is called an MCP server. And the way to think about this is it's basically Claude's remote control to Supabase. So without it, Claude would just have to tell you what to do. You would go into the UI or the website and you would execute on all of those actions. And that's totally a workable way to do it. It's just really cumbersome and creates a lot of potential for mistakes or inconsistencies. With an MCP server, Claude can do everything directly. It can set up your schema, it can set up the tables, it can set everything up. So that way you don't really have to do anything other than tell Claude, hey, this is what I want to accomplish, this is what I'm trying to do, and it'll do all of that on the background. And that's the theme, as we said in class one, of everything is just you don't have to know the mechanics of the actual build. You just have to know this is what I want to get done, this is what I want to see, and it will take care of it for you. One note that's just worth mentioning, an API is very similar to an MCP. It's in that an MCP is designed for Claude to connect to a data source in a way that it doesn't really have to figure things out. It knows all the buttons, it knows all the commands, and it can execute it pretty quickly. With an API, it has to do a little bit of figuring out of how it works and like what the commands are that it has to do. So think of an MCP as just a wrapper for an API so that it's easier for Claude to actually use. Not One thing that's worth mentioning though is any data source that you want to hook up, as long as it has an MCP server or an API, Claude can connect to it. So if you're looking at new data sources or trying to find out what you can plug in, just ask Claude if it can find an API or MCP. And if it says yes, you're good to go. So in terms of the build and the process, you want to build the data and the database first. And the dashboard will come after that. And so the reason for this is that the database is going to house all of your metrics and house all of your information. And so you can't figure out how to build your database, what decisions you want to make, what metrics are available until you have a database of all of that information. If you do it the other way, you can create all the mockups you want, but you may not have the data to support those things, so you're just going to redo the database anyway. So for that reason, we always start with the database and the set of metrics that we have, and then we build the dashboard on top of that. And that goes with plugging in new sources as well. Plug in all of the sources and the metrics of the new things you want to track, and then build new panels or new dashboards on top of it. So the database we're using is Supabase, and it is a SQL database or very similar to a SQL database. And basically all you need to know is just a bunch of labeled spreadsheets that link together in some capacity. And so we never touch it directly. We don't really have to know the entire setup of it. Claude will handle most of that for us, but just think of it as a bunch of linked spreadsheets being held. So the thing that we want to link the data source to the database, so in this case, Google Analytics, how do we get it into Supabase, is something called a serverless function. And basically what it is, it's a little robot that you can call on demand or on a schedule that will go out to Google Analytics, pull the new information, and bring it over to your database and store it in your database. So it's a little robot that goes between the two and just makes sure that your database has the most up-to-date information. Supabase specifically calls it an edge function. That's just branding. The general term is a serverless function. They're the same thing. But that's all you really need to know about how things get synced is we set up a serverless function that connects the two sources. So you'll need to create one of these for every single data source that you have. Sometimes you can combine them. It depends on the structure and what the purpose is. Claude will handle all of this for you. But one thing I will flag is that once you get it off the ground, it's really important to check whether it's accurate and storing the information correctly, because if there's a bug, you're going to get wildly different information than what actually is accurate. So it's really good process to actually check. So that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell Claude, hey, we have all of these metrics in Supabase, and I want to bring them, or in Google Analytics, I'm sorry, and I want to bring them into Supabase. So like I said, I'm going to use the dummy data. So I'm going to go back over here and say, let's grab this into this project. Okay, so it properly ingested all of the sample data and created the tables. So we have a set of data to build off of. Um, so in the case of you wanting to connect your actual Google Analytics, you'll run this prompt, and what it'll do is it'll create the serverless function for you. So it'll go into your Google Analytics, it'll see what's there, and then it's going to create a little robot that goes in, pulls out that data, and puts it in your database. Since I'm using sample data, I'm not going to do this right now, but just paste the prompt in, it'll take care of it for you. Okay, and so now that we have the baseline of data that we'll be building the dashboard on top of, we can actually start building the dash. Now, you'll remember in class 1, we used Impeccable Init in order to create the design philosophy and to set the project up to be able to use this command. Now that we're in a new project for this dashboard, we have to do the same exact thing because we need Impeccable to have the design philosophy and understand what it's building against. The great news, though, is that because this is an internal dashboard and it's not going public and will be locking in a secure way at the end of this, you can have as much fun with this as you want and you can make it look however you want. I personally, in my real dashboard, use a robots in space theme, which I'll show you towards the end. But you can come up with any type of theme you want, whether it's a medieval war room. I put some examples down here, old world newspaper, whatever it is. Have fun with it. Impeccable's really good at making the designs look really fun. But the idea here is that you're going to be spending a lot of time in this dashboard, especially as you build more and more panels and views, and you're running your business out of it. So you might as well build something that you're really going to enjoy looking at constantly over many, many hours over a long period of time. So that's all to say. Have fun with it. Total creative freedom. You can always change it, but really great way to start being more playful with all of this stuff instead of having to be so stuck in the business. So we're going to run it here. Impeccable Init. So basically, what I said for this one is since this is for Scuba Zen, I want my dashboard to be scuba diver themed. And then I explicitly gave it permission of, hey, this is internal only, so have fun with it, make it fun, playful, whatever. Optional for you to do, but pick your theme, pick whatever you want for your aesthetic, and again, have fun with it. Total creative freedom. Okay, so it's installed. We have the init done. And so the next step is to actually build the dashboard surface. Before we dive into that and I show it to you, because this is a custom dashboard, I think it's worth talking about how to frame this in your mind. So, when you use a traditional dashboard, and Google Analytics especially, what it does is it dumps a bunch of raw metrics and numbers in your face. And it's really hard to understand what to do with all of that information. Um, I've looked at this dashboard before and just been completely overwhelmed by it. I can't make decisions off of it. I just have all of these metrics that I don't really know how they relate and what they do. So, what you want to do here is that you want to build this dashboard in a way that packages all of those raw metrics in such a way that you can actually get informed decisions. Um, and so, one thing to do that is a good trick that I do is Google Analytics gives you a lot of raw data, but you can invent your own metrics based on those that data so that you can actually gain deeper insights. So you can use metrics in relation to each other, create fractions or ratios. You can turn them into percentages. All of these things allow you to interpret the same metrics and information in such a way that you can actually make decisions. And so, what I do is, and I do this for every data source that I give my dashboard, is I say, look at all of these raw analytics. Let's create a set of derived metrics that can help um, drive decisions for my site. Um, and so I'll walk you through that right now. But one thing I want to flag before we get into the build is the initial surface that it's going to present you is never right. And that's the point. That's okay. The entire purpose of this, just like with your initial website build, is to create something for you to react to and refine. So don't get discouraged if this isn't immediately the thing that you want to run your business on. It's a starting point. So just like we did with the website, we're going to run craft or shape as the first pass. And then once we have a good orientation of the aesthetic and the vibe, we're going to go down that funnel from class one of, okay, now let's start looking at the metrics. Is this a metric that I can actually make a decision on? Am I understanding what I would do with that information? And then just keep running Boulder or Interrogate and have a conversation with Claude about how to develop this dashboard. So that way you're understanding the information being presented and you know what to do with that information in order to improve your business. The other thing that's important to know is it's a living dashboard. So we'll go through this build now and we'll get it to a point where you feel good about it, you feel that it's useful. But until you actually start using it to run your business, you don't really know if it is that useful. So once you start running it and start running your business, you'll come up with things of like, hey, I feel like I'm missing this information, or I have questions about this. You have total freedom now to go in and make those updates so that it becomes useful. And the more that you keep using the dashboard in the business, the less updates you'll have to make over time and the more useful it'll become because you've really refined it to such a way that you're getting what you need out of it. So, all of that being said, let's actually build the first pass of the dashboard. So, I'm going to run Impeccable Shape here. You can run Craft, it has all the information that it doesn't really matter. But I want to explore some of the metrics that we can derive first, and that will help inform the design of the dashboard. Okay, so this is done, but as you can see, we can't see the dashboard. So what it does is it puts it at a local host or a local server on your computer. So I will explain that right now. So basically, what it does is it creates a Versal or a housing or a deployment on your local computer so that way you can actually see what it built. A lot of times it'll do it automatically, but if it doesn't, what you can do is just say, launch it locally and open it in my web browser so I can see it live. So it can do that for you, but you can also equally just copy this link. It's always a local host and some random number, and it'll open it up in your browser. So this is what it built. And just like the website, all you're looking really for in this first pass is the aesthetic and making sure that it kind of matches the vibe that you're after. And then you go through and start going through the metrics and making sure that it actually drills down into things that are actionable in the way you interpret information. Like we said, this is the first pass. It's not supposed to be right or exact. It's just supposed to be a good starting point. So this has like a lot of data and theme, and like generally this would work for me, right? But this is just traffic data and a lot of metrics. So what I would have to do is go through each of these and be like, okay, does this actually provide value for me to make a decision? So one thing it does here, which is really nice, is that this is underinvested, meaning or investigate. Like it gives me these tags. It's working here, so like protected, and so like that helps me inform a decision. And then it gives me these little blurbs that say like, okay, this is the context of what it is. So that helps me understand what I'm reading and what to do and like how all of these interact. So it's a really good starting point. And just like in the website class, you go down and you go section by section. You really help orient about how you're thinking, if it's useful for you. Like one of the things this did is like where your effort pays, right? So this whole section is like what I need to focus on, and that's helpful. And the whole dashboard's theme is like put in this week's hour, right? So where do I go for the next hour? And then this is just more charts. So this is a starting point. Like we said, it's not supposed to be right on the first iteration. So what it'll show you is the actual dashboard that I use, which again, I use a different theme. Mine is like robot space theme, so it looks completely different. But the surface that I ended up with is tracking like my sessions, the acquisition mix, where is everything coming from? So like how are people getting to my website? This is for Strat Engine, by the way. So it has different data. Then I have like device, what device is actually logging in, where countries, and all of these traffic metrics. And so this entire tab is just the traffic tab. So this tells me what's moving through my website. And so Google Analytics is going to give you a lot of traffic data. And the reason that we did this as class 2 is that class 3 is all about SEO and GEO, of like how do I get search engine optimization, how do I get generative engine optimization, and like how do I get found. And so in order to actually start using that data, you need to understand how to build the dashboard. So this class largely going to be traffic and just a good start, but where the real value comes is even further down the pipeline when you start adding sources. So just as a preview of what's in class 3, we have SEO data here. So like how am I ranking by page? What are my impressions? What's my average position when people are searching? And then this is for me, how I ingest information is like, okay, these are the queries that people are searching that I'm ranking not so highly on, that are something I need to like improve and work on my SEO. So this is actionable for me because I have a description here. I understand the metrics that's being pulled here. And then for the GEO stuff, this is my AI visibility, and it says, okay, these are the how I'm being pulled by AI, and then I have a fixed list. So this actually tells me I'm ranking for these quotes, but I'm not being quoted by the AI. So that means there's something in here that I need to fix, and so this is actionable for me. And then I have things over here which are like I'm being quoted, but I'm not ranking that high. So this tells me I have something going on with these types of phrases that I'm outperforming. So I need to take learnings from here and apply them here. And so this is where the dashboard becomes really actionable, is this is how I ingest information and this is how I understand what to do and make decisions to improve my business. And then down here, I have competition of how I'm being cited against others and like evidence of all of this information. So that's just like the panel for my traffic. Like I have also other views here where like, hey, this is where my marketing funnel of like where are they coming from and how are they getting through. But this is all just marketing funnel stuff, right? So like the reason that this is really important to learn as a skill is you can expand this to actually run other sides of your business. So what I have here are like different agents that I have running in different departments. So going to the top, this is how I organize my four companies. So I have the four companies here. And so depending on what I want to dig into and figure out, I'll go in and be like, okay, now maybe I want to look at the product metrics, right? So like, how is my product doing? Oh, I have some issues I need to fix. Okay, what's my user base look like? What's my marketing funnel look like? And so you can really start developing other sides of the business, and start understanding how everything is run so you can start making decisions purely based on the way you ingest information. So that's the expandability of all of this. And so getting this first panel done in this class teaches you everything you need to know to start really building everything out. Okay, so let's say we're done with this dashboard, we're happy with what it is, and we want to launch it. So then what we need is we need another Vercel deployment and another GitHub repo for this. They are going to be different than your website, but the exact same setup. You push to GitHub, it deploys to Vercel. You learned how to do that in class 1, so I'm not going to walk you through that. You should be able to, you're signed in, you should be able to do it. But if you run into issues, go back to class 1 or ask Claude. And then this is important is because it's a dashboard that houses proprietary data that you don't want public. You want to password protect this deployment on Vercel. And so there are two ways to do it. You could block Vercel completely to outside people. So Vercel has a password protection feature that you turn on, and then it'll show you the website once you're logged in. Or you can create a real login screen that Vercel will always show when you log in. And this is really good if you have multiple users that may have different accounts for that dashboard. So you can really control who has access and who doesn't. Up to you which one you want to do. It depends on the context of your business and what you're trying to do. Ask Claude if you're unsure. They both accomplish the same thing in that they're protecting the public from being able to see it, since Vercel deploys to a public link. As we did in class 1, you can put this on a subdomain if you want. It makes it easier to remember, so that way if you're on a different computer or you're on your phone and you want to log in, but it's completely optional. Vercel has their own link that they create with every deployment, so you can continue to use that and bookmark that. This is totally optional. It's easy to do. Vercel handles it pretty easily. So completely optional, but just wanted to highlight it. And then, as always, if you're stuck on a certain area or you don't know what to do, Claude can help you get unstuck. So always worth asking and troubleshooting with Claude. And so that you have a live dashboard. So what it unlocks here is you have a data pipeline that refills your database every day if you set it on a timer to sync or a manual sync, depending on how you set it up. You have a private dashboard where you can actually make decisions about your business and improve them. And then the habit that scales here is, as you have more data sources, you can create metrics and create more insights based off all of these metrics. You can cross-combine data sources. You can create different panels and see different sides of the business. So now you have something that is completely customized to the way that you want to run the business. You don't have to pay for these dashboards or business intelligence tools or anything like that. You have all the information you need.